What do you think about college football expansion? I don't know if you've talked about this on your channel, but
No.
the Big Ten has reached out and added Los Angeles, USC and UCLA. Some people are like, that's a bad culture fit. I think it's beautiful. I think if the Big Ten had the argument of being like coast to coast, sea to sea, we cover all of college football, I think that would be beautiful. I've always felt like Pitt should be in the Big Ten if you already have Penn State, but I get it. Pitt and Penn State
They
in
don't
there.
really do anything for the conference financially. They don't
No, yeah,
really
I guess, yeah.
you don't really do anything competitively. I mean, they had it obviously last year with Kenny Pickett, but I don't expect that program to. I mean, that program has not been consistently elite um, in my lifetime. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm okay with the expansion to LA, and it's a survival of the fittest right now. If I'm the Big Ten, I'd very much look at Florida. Very much look at Florida. I'm not talking about Florida State. I'm talking about Miami. I think Georgia Tech is an interesting player. I've said that for a while now. I think they're a very
Facts.
intriguing ad.
Preach.
I mean,
Preach.
that's an intriguing ad if I'm the Big
Preach.
Ten. If
The
I'm the
only
Big
reason why I would say is because they're an original SEC member. People don't know that. Georgia Tech is actually in the Alabama fight song. Like they used to, like Georgia Tech was in the original members of the SEC, so they may go back and join them. But I
they
think they
could,
would be a great combo
but again,
for
what
them to
does that
join them.
add? I don't think Georgia Tech adds anything for the SEC. They've already got Georgia. Competitively, Georgia Tech has not been real good since what late 2000, early late 2000s, like 2009, 10. Of course, they played Iowa in an Orange Bowl in 2010. I think Georgia Tech's an interesting player because it would expand the footprint down into a very fertile recruiting ground. Certainly, you get down into Miami, that's a whole different territory. I think Florida State is an interesting ad. They've got rich history. Lately, they've kind of been erratic, as you know. That program, it's just been a very strange series of events. I mean, you go from
I
being
love every
national
second of it.
but I mean, even Clemson is an interesting one. Do they end up in the? I expect them to end up in the SEC someday.
Yeah.
But is that the best move for them? Probably, but I don't know. I do think Oregon, Washington are good considerations. I don't have a problem with Stanford. I don't know that Cal is a great option simply because it doesn't seem like they really value academics, or excuse me, value athletics. They value
Right.
academics. They don't really value athletics.
And I think in the Big Ten, you got to have both. It
Yeah.
might be the most well versed conference in all of college football.
Well, yeah, they've got standards that I think some fans who are just care about the athletic side of things don't really understand, but they do. They want everybody to be an AAU school. Right now, Nebraska's not. They lost that accreditation. Now, is Miami an AAU school? That's a question for you.
No,
So that's going to
but
be a
I don't think
problem.
they ever. I don't know if they ever applied for it. They could. I mean, we rank in the top 50 in the country, so we could easily apply for it if need be.
It's got to do something with research, and again, I don't know how all that works, but that's been a continued topic. But no, I would say, if I'm answering your question, I'm fine with the USC UCLA moves from the traditionalist point of view. I understand why people don't like it because they think of conferences as being regional, and
Mm.
that's just not the facts anymore. That's not.
Oh,
There's a conference in college basketball. I don't remember which conference it is, but there's a conference in college basketball that's playing schools on the East and West Coast already. So this is happening, and now that it's happening with Power Five schools and in college football, people are starting to worry. But it is what it is. You can't control it. The SEC has made moves with adding Oklahoma and Texas to where if you don't respond, and you can't respond, like there are no moves in the Big Ten footprint from a regional point of view. There are no moves in the Big Ten footprint that even come close to being able to even the scales with SEC. The only way the Big Ten can do that is adding USC, UCLA, which they did.
right.
And I think potentially, I shouldn't say there's nobody. Notre Dame would certainly help. You add Notre Dame, and I think if you add Notre Dame, USC, and UCLA,
Man,
then I think we're close. If the SEC adds Miami, Florida State, and Clemson, then I still give the SEC the nod. If
right.
Iowa or if the Big Ten then added Oregon and Washington, maybe I'd still give the SEC a slight edge. But this is just a battle of the fittest, and the Big Ten had to make a move, and I think they made a good move.
I think it was a great move because now here's the thing: you got to be able to pull eyes, right? Now,
Yeah.
helmets on the football field is one thing. That's what people who love football care about. But the ADs and they care about another thing, the construct and the quality of matchups and finances that come in, right? But then the people who sign their checks, okay, the higher ups, all they care about is eyes, ratings, and money. Okay. The University of Miami has won 10 games one time in the last 12 years or 15 years. Okay. And we still pull great ratings when we play certain teams.
Absolutely.
It's just it is what it is. Okay. Now the University of Iowa, or is it Iowa University or University of Iowa?
University of Iowa.
Okay, the University of Iowa, I don't know if they pull ratings, big ratings, unless I mean Iowa State is a great game every year. How many people nationally turn in and watch that game?
That's a good question. Mark would know. I don't
You
know.
know, well, yeah, he would know that off the top of his head. But when you guys were upsetting Ohio State, that last half of that, it was like everybody tuning in to see why, because Ohio
Sure.
State was losing. It wasn't about the quality of ball that Iowa was producing. The year prior to that, you all beat a top 3 ranked Michigan team that was supposed to ride off into the sunset. Okay, and they lost on the road at Iowa. Okay, and the reason those ratings at the end of the year were high, why? Because you were beating Michigan. It wasn't about Iowa.
Right.
So when I look at what the Big Ten could do, they could legit have an argument of having a marquee program in all big football states like Ohio, like California, like Florida. If they were to add the University of Miami, I don't think. And also, Miami has always been different from everyone else in the state.
True.
Geographically, we're borderline South America. Like we're the Caribbean island, you know,
Yeah.
geographically speaking. We're not the Florida Gators. We don't handle things in the way that we carry ourselves and play like the Florida Gators. We definitely don't carry ourselves and act the way Tallahassee does. So they can go join the SEC. Geographically, it makes sense for them. It fits for them. Thumbs up. For Miami, I think going to the Big Ten makes a lot of sense. We're a really high academic institution. When it comes to research, our big thing is U Health, and it's trying to find a cure for cancer. And also, we have really big sea aquatic research with helping in that department and cleaning the earth and all that kind of stuff. That's their thing. So they probably can get into AAU because they do those other kinds of things.
Right.
But talk about matchups. The 4 teams that would be a perfect addition for you all. 2 of them you already got. The other 2 would be pulling Notre Dame out of the independent
Yeah.
and going down and grabbing Miami out of Miami. It would be that to me would be a big boom, and the SEC would have to go. Okay,
Better add though, Miami or Clemson. Like, it's got to be Clemson, right? I mean, right now,
yeah.
it's probably still Clemson. Are you assuming then that Clemson ends up in the SEC?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've always wanted to be that. They're still pissed because here's the funny part. Clemson and South Carolina, I'm a historian. Clemson and South Carolina both used to be ACC teams.
Right.
And they're still pissed that they chose South Carolina over Clemson. And South Carolina got into the SEC instead of Clemson. I mean, they've always wanted to be known as an SEC program, but right there in the heart of SEC country, it kind of just makes sense.
Well, I
The
do
other
wonder.
team is UNC. I think North Carolina would be a great addition for Big Ten also.
But do you split up Duke and North Carolina? That's the question. Do you split those 2 teams up?
Absolutely. I mean, whatever.
Well, we're talking about this from a football perspective, but those 2 schools care about basketball, right? I mean, I'd
add them too if you want to.
Yeah,
we know Duke could definitely. I mean, who wouldn't want to watch Duke and Northwestern, right? The battle of the intellects.
Listen, from an academics standpoint, those schools would fit the bill, right?
Absolutely. North Carolina's big. Virginia's an amazing academic institution. They would fit in, but I mean, here now you have to start to bridge those conversations. So let me ask you this: how big do you think the Big Ten would want to get?
That's a tough question. I mean, we're speculating on. I do think we're going to have surprises, like all the speculation out there. I mean, since the moves to add USC and UCLA, the talk has been Oregon, Washington. That was where it went first, and then we got wind. Oh, Stanford's in the mix. They want Notre Dame, which they've always wanted Notre Dame, but those are basically the schools that get brought up. I don't know that. I think we're going to have surprises. So, do I think they'll get to 20 teams? Is that the end goal in time? It may
24?
be 24. I don't know. I can't even envision what college football looks like if the SEC and the Big Ten both end up with 24. I don't even really know what that looks like. I mean, scheduling models and revenue sharing, I just don't know what that looks like anymore, because you don't have like networks. You have enough networks to support these games. How do it's an odd situation. And it's just like the world. The rich keep getting richer. It's going to be that, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to continue to pull away from these other conferences. And I know the Pac-12's in a fight to try to survive. And, the Big 12 did all they could last year. I think you and I would both agree. They did everything they could last year with 4 solid ads. And despite those ads, they're still not even close to what the Big Ten and the SEC have moving forward. So there are no more moves to make. The only moves to make are the ones we assume will happen. And that, at least up until I've had this conversation with you, I've always assumed since this discussion that Miami, Clemson, Florida State end up in the SEC, which means the Big Ten has to get Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, of course, USC and UCLA. And if they do that, then the stakes are similar. And then, who adds who? Is there a Georgia Tech in the mix? We talked about Pittsburgh. So I don't know if the end game is 20 or 24. The one thing Mark and I always talk about is college football. One thing, I love college football. I know you love college football. The one thing about the sport that's so irritating is everything takes so long to happen, actually happen. And the playoff expansion and all that. I mean, these things we're having schedules released. We had a schedule leak. Iowa playing Northern Iowa in 2029. Right. I mean, who cares?
That shouldn't be a thing.
But it is. It is. Right. Why do we do that? The NFL makes, releases their schedule just months before the season starts. That's the way it should be done. And I would get more excited in talking about expansion. I know people like to talk about it, but I get more excited if these things weren't years down the road. And I believe we have to wait till 2024 for USC and UCLA to join the Big Ten. So right. It seems so far away.
And see, that's why I say I could talk about college football for 8 hours. That doesn't bother me. Here's my thing. We got to be able to have. I think having a college football commissioner would be big.
A czar.
Right, because I look at I don't mind the NFL model. I like watching NFL games, but I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at pro ball. Okay, the difference in those games isn't about the fact that the young man didn't get enough sleep last night because he's crying on the phone with his girlfriend because she's mad at him about this, and he had to stay up and write a paper that, and blah, 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 and then he had to still show up and go play ball the next day. These guys out here are all either 100,000-aires or millionaires, and they're the best players and some of the best coaches going at it. Okay, we'll just see what happens, and they all shake hands and ride off into the sunset.
Right.
The step below, it's a little bit more visceral. Okay, when NC State plays UNC, it's not about shaking hands and kissing babies. I want to destroy you. Okay, and that's just how it is. We take a little bit more pride in that. I even look at, I'm a Ravens fan. My mother is a Steelers fan. And when they played, it was just like, oh, okay, well, your Steelers won, my Ravens lost. If my mom happened to be a Tallahassee fan, we probably wouldn't speak for about a week. That's just how serious we take it at the college football level. But all this pro talk and having Nick Saban being like the person who's always talking about the pro model, I don't know. Maybe we look a year from today and both conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, are basically trying to make 2 big 32-team conferences, split it down the middle, have the 4-team pods that play each other. You go from there. Heck, the ACC did the new pod, the 3-3-5 pod. So maybe they're even trying that out there. So all we know is that college football will never look the same.
No.
It just isn't
going to be. And just to piggyback on this, and then we can end this discussion. The NIL, to have all this paired with NIL is a wicked combination. Maybe wicked's the wrong. I don't want to give the wrong impression. I know,
right? Not a negative connotation.
Yeah, it's just a crazy combination, and I don't know what the future. You talked about a commissioner and a czar. We need somebody in charge that can look at this and say, okay, how do we logistically and legally make a salary cap for players? Because if you don't, it's just going to be what I brought up earlier, the rich getting richer, literally. These
Right, literally.
universities that have the most money that can pay for their rosters. And I think University of Miami, I mean, look at the deal that Nigel Pack got. I mean, I don't think Miami is going to be suffering from NIL, but teams like Iowa could. So it's an unsteady landscape. But I think if you're Iowa, you're happy. Miami's in a better position as it relates to NIL. Iowa is in a better position right now as it relates to conference, where they lie in their respective conference. But I do think Miami, somebody will want Miami, whether the Big Ten or the SEC. When the time comes, somebody will want Miami.
Right, and for all we know, we could be the Rebels and join the Big 12. I don't know what happened. Now, we also have to understand that this is in conversation that the ACC is just going to fall apart. Well, the ACC is not a bad conference. Yes,
No.
we just have Clemson and everyone else kind of behind them. There's a clear tier 1, Clemson. There's a clear tier 2.
There doesn't have to be. There doesn't
right,
have
we'll
to be.
see. I'm just saying as far as right now. We'll see
Yeah.
once we start playing games. But, who's to say that the ACC doesn't partner with the Big 12 and they become a combo? You never know. So I think that it's going to be between the Big Ten and the SEC because those are clearly the best two conferences.
But the programs with the most potential in the ACC at the top far outweigh the programs with the most potential in the Big 12. I don't think it's even close. Like, you look at what Clemson, the history there, even just recent history, you look at the history of Miami, Florida State. Just take those 3 schools. What 3 schools in the Big 12 can even come close to that? Now that Oklahoma and Texas are gone, I mean, who are we looking at? Texas Tech?
Yeah.
Who are we looking at? There's
Baylor and OU, or Baylor and Oak State. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, BYU is maybe in that which that's crazy. They weren't even part of a Power 5 conference, and they're not even part of a Power 5 conference yet. So, the ACC is definitely in third place as it relates to positioning, and I still think the Pac-12, because of the fact that Pac-12 still has Oregon and Washington, who each have somewhat rich histories to some extent, they have more to offer in realignment than the Big 12 does.
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%.